Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Surgery podcast. This is episode 2 where I dive deep into my first ever surgery, so sit tight because things get pretty gruesome. Let's take it back to 2018 once again. If you haven't watched the first episode, I highly recommend you go and watch that first just so you get a little bit more of an insight into the podcast and into myself. But for those who have watched it, let's continue. So back in 2018, as I explained, I had found them on Instagram and I sent them pictures of myself, and they said that I was quoted £6,000 for a tummy tuck, a BBL, liposuction to the whole body and a breast uplift with implant. So that is what we opted for. I made my way over on British Airways flight. Everything went smooth. They picked me up from the airport in a nice VIP car, which is kind of the general with Turkey companies. So usually when you do book your surgeries with a Turkish company, they will always provide you with like a VIP transport to and from the airport to the hotel, and then from the hotel to the hospital, and then whatever other journeys that you need to have. So that is pretty standard and they are nice. So yeah, I got into one of the cars, they took us straight to the villa. It was around about 6-7 p.m. at this time in Turkey, so they said that we were allowed to eat until midnight, and then after midnight nothing at all because my surgery was due for 6 o'clock in the morning. So we wake up at 6, we get ready, and I meet about another 5 to 6 girls downstairs that are also getting in the car with us as well. And we all make our way over to the hospital. Now, I was there with my friend, and a lot of people do have like a companion with them or like a parent, just somebody who's there to help them, because again is another norm in Turkey. When you have surgery there, they will say that you can bring somebody for free. Obviously they have to pay for their flights, but they can stay in the same accommodation with you for free, and usually their breakfast is included as well. At the villa I was staying at, all of the food was supplied, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and whatever snacks that they wanted as well. So I brought a friend with me on my first time, and this girl in the taxi didn't have anyone with her, she was on her own. So when we got to the hospital, she said, could we have a room that fit both of us in? So we'd both be in the same room together with my friend, who could also then help her as well, because she was also having the same procedures as I was, minus the tummy tuck. So she might need a bit of help, like putting her like hair up or just getting out of bed. So that was that. We got there. You quickly rush to sign papers. They're not really read out to you in any way or translated. They just say sign there, and there, and you're done. And you get your blood tests. And well, I just had blood tests. Some places they do like ECGs, X-rays. It all really depends on what you having done, to be honest with you. So for me on that occasion it was just a blood test and a urine test to make sure you're not pregnant. So we done all of that, and they said that my surgery would have been at 11 a.m, but it was around 3 p.m. the surgeon came in and marked me and this girl up, and said who wants to go next basically, and she said, please can I go next so that your friend can message my mum, let her know that I'm out and I'm safe, and then you can go. And to be honest with you, at this point I hadn't had a Pepsi Max in like well over a day, and I hadn't ate, so I was just tired and I was thinking, okay, whatever, I'll just go back to sleep, and you can go before I did. Now, when I was getting marked up, the surgeon was so rude. He smelt of cigarettes. He had a bad attitude. He said that he wouldn't do a tummy tuck on me because I was only 21 and I hadn't had any kids. And I said that I would be having kids in the future, or I was planning to have kids in the future. So he said it was just best not to have a tummy tuck at that time. And I remember him saying to me, oh, but don't go crying to the owners about it. And I was just thinking, well, I'm not going to go crying to the owners about it. If you don't think I need it, I'm not going to have it. You know, if I'm too young for it right now, I'm too young for it. But he just, I don't know, he's just a bit of an asshole, to be honest with you. He didn't talk to me about like implant sizes. I heard a lot of talk in the villa when I arrived about 500cc implants. So in my head I was just like, I'm having 500cc implants. I had no idea what size they were. But that is the size I went for because he asked without even going through the sizes with me, and that was just the plan: 500cc implants, a BBL, and some liposuction. I was having it in my chin, my arms, my knees, my inside thighs, my upper and lower abdomen, and upper and lower back. And then that was going to be transferred obviously into hips and the bum. Um, so yeah, she went in then for surgery around about 4 o'clock, I think, and came in around about 8, 9 o'clock from what I can remember. And my turn down into the theatre was 11 o'clock at night, something like that. So it was pretty late and absolutely should not have gone ahead. And if I wasn't, like back then I was just quite shy. If I felt something was wrong, I wasn't really going to speak up, whereas now I would. So yeah, we went down at, yeah, it's got to be about 11 o'clock, and they injected me in the lift, and I started to get sleepy in the lift, and by the time we had got down to the theatre I was already knocked out. And when I woke up, wow, the pain when I woke up was absolutely horrendous. I have never felt pain like that in my life. I was screaming. I was really screaming. I was terrified. I was crying, and they were rolling me back up to the hospital room, and they were telling me to shut up. They were saying there was nothing wrong, and they were literally just going, just shut up, just shut up. And I was thinking, oh my god, I'm in so much pain. I was howling. I was literally howling. Um, about 2 hours later, the surgeon came back in. Bear in mind, I didn't come out of surgery until about 3 or 4 in the morning. So he'd been working since I assume like 8, 9 o'clock that morning as well. So he was literally working around the clock. We'll come back to that. That's so cringe. We'll come back to why I done that. So yeah, he'd apparently been working around the clock. But yeah, about 2 hours later, after I woke up from my surgery, he came in. But I think the nurses alerted him to how much pain I was in, and I think maybe he realised something went wrong in the surgery, which is why he came so quick. My nipple had gone necrotic, so my left nipple was like completely purple. And it was like black in some places where it was dying. So they unstitched it without any anaesthetic, just cut it, left my nipple hanging, and bandaged it up. So my nipple was just hanging by a thread, bandaged up. And he said that it needed blood flow, and that was the best way to get blood flow back. And if or when it gets back blood flow, we will restitch your nipple to your breast. I also was having trouble breathing, so I had to stay in hospital an extra night on my own. My friend went back with the lady that was next to me, because it was kind of pointless her staying in the hospital with me anyway. It was boring, I was moody, obviously, I was in pain, I just wanted to go to sleep, I wanted to be on my own. So I went back to the villa the next day, and I said to the owner, you know, look, this is what happened. You need to refund me the £1,000 of the tummy tuck, which they did. They give it back to me in cash pretty much straight away. And I said, look, my nipple at the moment, this is what's happened with it. And it's like, it's hanging off, like it's hurting me. And he laughed and just thought it was quite funny. He didn't really care, to be honest with you, that my nipple was hanging on and just bandaged up. So, you know, that was that. And then it came to day 2, where I was allowed to take my faja off to have a shower. And I seen my body for the first time, and it was just utter disbelief. I was shocked. I cried hysterically for the whole day. I was covered in bruises. I will add pictures, by the way, so actually I'll add a picture now. So it's going to go like this, and there'll be a picture here, okay, of how bad I was bruised. And also, if you look at the result, what the fuck is this? Why is it so square, and why is it starting so far at my back? What is this? This isn't an arse. This is a fucking catastrophe, because this isn't a BBL. I've never seen a BBL look like this in my life. So yeah, seeing my body for the first time, I was covered in bruises, and I mean covered. I've never seen a body so full of bruises, and everyone was so shocked at how bad my body was. I remember some of the girls at the villa, they were just gasping seeing the bruises, because they just didn't look like that. So they just like, they had a bit of bruising, but they looked like normal. Their skin looked normal compared to mine. I had like, there wasn't a part of my body that didn't have a bruise, and you'll see in the picture that I will repop it. There isn't a part of my body that is not covered in a bruise. So you can see the extent of pain that I would have been in. So going back to my body, it was severely swollen, like severely swollen. I actually felt bigger than how I went into surgery, because I was just so swollen. I was battered and bruised. Honestly, it was like, it was terrible. It was like 12 out of 10 pain. He kept sending, so the surgeon kept sending then his assistant over to the villa every day to check on the progress of my body, and they kept saying to me, no pizzas, no pop, stop eating pizzas and pop. And I'm thinking, I don't have pizza and pop. I'm in a villa where they cater for surgery. They literally give you fucking rice, like a little bit of a spoonful of rice, and fucking chicken nuggets cut up. Hardly nutritious, but it wasn't fucking pizza and pop. And they only give you water and juice. So I was just like, where are you getting this idea that I'm drinking pizza and fucking pop? And also, if the results are bad, it's because of you. It isn't because I've just had fucking pizza and pop a day later after surgery. Like, it was just mind-blowing. And yeah, he would just come in, he would just clean up the wounds. They said to me to lay on my hips, because as you would have seen from the picture, my hips were absolutely huge, because they had started the BBL from my back. So where I had a love handle in my back, they started the BBL there to try and shape my back into my bum somehow, and for some unknown fucking reason. So I had this big square fucking thing going on. And the solution that they gave me when I was in the villa was to lay on my hips. So that's what I done, and it was agonizing. It was absolutely agonizing. Laying on freshly filled hips is a pain that I just cannot describe to you. It burns. It pulls. It's like this weird pulling, and obviously you've got all these drains in, which ultimately also ruined the results, because when the swelling did go down, I was just left really uneven and lumpy. But you know, I had to, that was the advice they gave me, and that's what I followed. But for the remainder of my stay in the villa, nobody really gave a shit about my results, that the fact I was unhappy. They just kept telling me to wait 6 months, and saying, yeah, Dad, just wait 6 months, and if you're not happy, we'll just bring you back. And like, it was something just so simple, like, yeah, if you're not happy, don't worry, fuck off home where you're not our issue right now, and then we'll just bring you back in 6 months for free anyway and fix it. So it was just like a massive cop out. Like, they just didn't give a fuck. They had your money, you had your surgery, they couldn't care less if you were happy or not. You just fuck off back home, and they will deal with you later if they feel like dealing with you later, basically. But going back to why I done this earlier regarding the surgeon, is I had a tip off from one of his workers, and they let me know that during my surgery his assistant actually did take over and finished my surgery. and I was just absolutely gutted when I found that out. But yeah, I found that out about a year after my surgery, but I thought that would be important to include because in the first episode I did mention that a lot of the times these popular doctors, if they are doing a lot of patients a day, you know, it's very likely that their assistant is doing somebody's next to them doing a patient, but the same name is getting slapped on both girls, even though they're getting done at the same time, which is obviously impossible. And that is what happened to me on my first time. So yeah, he finished me off, which is why obviously my surgeon was able to come back 2 hours after I was finished to come and assess the nipple damage that was done. So yeah, I left the villa, I went home, and I was actually feeling okay in myself at the time. Obviously I was gutted about my body, but I was still like, I was severely swollen, and I was in all these like paddings and like the faja and stuff, so I didn't panic too much after being calmed down by my friends and my family. I kind of left it, but about 3 weeks after arriving home was when my nipple stitches started to pop open and they ripped completely, which I will put a picture up here. You'll be able to see that there is a massive hole right next to the nipple, and then I'll put up another picture here, and you'll see that going down the stitches of the boob there's small little openings. So that happened. I'd go to the NHS, they would tell me what dressings and they'd give me a bit of iodine, the brown cleaning stuff they use in surgeries. Some of that, they told me what antiseptic cream to buy, so I got that, I put it on, and the stitches would slowly close, like they would have like that like clear skin over them when they were trying to heal themselves, but then they would just rip back open again. And by a month's time, the uplift of my boobs had completely dropped, which I will put a picture here. So you'll see the top is when they were about 3 weeks, 2 weeks done, and then underneath is a month in, where you can see the holes have now closed up a bit, but the breast lift has now completely dropped after 1 month post surgery. As for the bum fat dropped into my legs and into, obviously the back dropped into the bum, but the bum then dropped into my legs and my hips. So I'll put up a lot of pictures here. I'll just keep putting up pictures here. You'll be able to see that it is dropped into my thighs, it's dropped into my hips. You'll see all the unevenness in my bum where there's some just solid lumps around in the actual buttock itself, and it looks like a cone, doesn't it? So you'll be able to see that it just looks very much like a cone, like sticking out either side. So yeah, I'll leave those pictures there for a sec just for you to have a look at, but yeah, you'll be able to see that they're just absolutely terrible. So that is what happened after my first surgeries. That was kind of the result. But then they did say that, so that happened in July of 2018. I went back March of 2019. The first surgeon, apparently according to the company, refused to correct my work, well, his work on my body. So they sent me to a different doctor, which was even fucking worse because this doctor isn't even on the board of certified surgeons in Turkey. He has a high death rate. He didn't use drains, which, well, I prefer drains, to be honest with you. I think it's a lot better, it's a lot safer. He didn't use drains, and the plan for him was to refill the buttocks, liposuction the legs and the hips from where the previous buttock fell, and then to liposuction the stomach as well and re-uplift the boobs, which he did do, but he how do I explain it? Like, he just done the very bare minimum. he didn't really detail anything, and what I mean by that is he just took the fat away and didn't care if one side of my body was flatter than the other. He didn't even try and make it even. He just thought, yeah, okay, I'll like put section that fat away a bit by there. As long as it looks like I've done a little bit, it doesn't really matter. But I remember waking up from surgery with him and I was singing Despacito, that song. I could hear it on the radio, and I was proper singing, and it was the is it Italian? Is that the version, or Spanish or something? Well, I was singing that, and I thought that I was singing the Italian or Spanish version. I thought I was singing the lyrics, because that's what I could hear on the radio. But it turns out there was never any radio there. Um, I was that high off the painkillers that I thought there was a radio on and they were playing Justin Bieber Despacito, but it wasn't. It was all in my head, and the nurses must have thought I was crazy. But the experience with him wasn't too bad. You know, that's a bit embarrassing, but it wasn't too bad. Of course, I went back to the villa. The villa is not to scratch. I mean, there was always blood on the toilet seat from where the girls were emptying their drains because the nurses were never doing it properly. So us girls would have to just go to the toilet and do it ourselves. There was like just random dogs coming into the villa grounds, and bless the dogs, I feel sorry for them. But when you've just had surgery and you need to be kept sterile, having stray dogs come into the grounds just wasn't very helpful, and not very cleansed either. Um, so yeah, they took me to him. I had my surgery with him, and it was pretty straightforward, to be fair, until we hit month 2, and that's when I got a hernia and all of this scar tissue, and I would peel back my stomach, like hold it like in like this, and you would just see like a massive lump of scar tissue. I used to think that I was pregnant, right, because of how solid it was. And when I would peel back the stomach like this, it looked like a bump. And I'll insert a picture here. It looks like a solid bump. It was just full of scar. It's like a rugby ball size of scars. And also my implant then dropped with him as well. So I'm not sure if it was because they never changed the implant on the second surgery. They just uplifted the skin. So I'm not sure if the implant was placed incorrectly, which is why it kept maybe forcing the skin to drop down. But it did end up dropping once again. And again, the fat wasn't taken out of my legs properly, and of course they refilled the bum, which never should have happened. They should have just light board, done the boobs better and left it at that. They never should have added any more fat to my hips and bum, but unfortunately they did, and I thought that was going to be best for me because that's what they said was best for me, and that's what we done. And it ended up going back into my hips, like into my thighs, and making the big lumps in my bum again and going into cones. So I'll put another picture up right here for you to see. And then I obviously got severely depressed, because this was the second surgery I had and it had gone wrong again. So I was severely depressed. I put on a lot of weight. I just did not care about maintaining a healthy, balanced lifestyle after the surgery at all. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about anything anymore. I was so hurt and so depressed, and I was having these nasty comments constantly, people saying I've ruined myself, and people expecting me to hide my body. But they have to understand the only thing that fit me were leggings and gym clothes, which ultimately showed off every bump and everything that went wrong, but it was the only thing that fit me. So I wasn't able to hide away, and I had to force myself to be comfortable with the way I looked because I had no choice. And it threw me into a very deep depression. Like, it affected every aspect of my life, my relationship, my work, just everything was just getting very dark for me, um, because you have just spent like £5,000, obviously a bit more if you add in the flights and stuff, and the flights go back a second time. So, but you've just spent like £5,000, and you do it to make yourself feel better, look better, obviously, and you've come up looking 20 times worse. It's a very, very hard thing to process, and at the age of 21 as well, your mind is still very impressionable by like society and the standards and stuff. And when I felt further pushed back from society's standards, oh my god, my mental well-being was very fucked at that time. So yeah, I put on a lot of weight. I just didn't care. I was drinking a lot, and I was kind of in self-destruction mode, um, and my body just got a lot worse. The tits got saggier, the stomach got bigger, I got another overhang again, I got all these new stretch marks, cellulite. Obviously, I was adding fat to places that did not need fat added, but like my knees got really fat again. But where they got liposuctioned and they got like molded, the fat was like sitting over. So like my kneecap had then like a hood of fat. Um, yeah, it really, really spiraled me like to oblivion, honestly. It was such a dark time. But this is why it is so important to do your research and not just find a company on Instagram and then think that's where I'm gonna go without doing any research, without asking anybody if they know the company, and booking it within a week and going. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. I wish that I'd done a lot of things different at the start of my journey, but that is the surgery that then started all of the rest of the surgeries. So I've spoke now about my initial surgery and my first correction, and I'll catch you in the next episode for the second correction. Yeah, that's right. God, do you know, I can't speak at the end of these, honestly. I will catch you in the third episode for my second correction story. Thank you for listening, guys. Bye.